Happy Thanksgiving! And before you sit down to your annual big dose of tryptophan, I'm going to give you a lesson in economics you probably never knew had anything to do with Thanksgiving. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is another declaration of truth from your host, Terry A. Hurlbut. And today is Thanksgiving Day in America, when we remember a great feast, actually two feasts in succeeding years, when the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag tribe together celebrated bountiful harvests. But everyone forgets that the second governor of Plymouth colony made a reform that ensured that such abundance would last. That reform was the concept property, which means ownership. Ownership is a private thing and has once again fallen out of favor. But we have William Bradford to thank, not only for instituting that reform, but also for soundly criticizing the mistaken idea that created the system that the reform replaced. Before class begins, I do want to shout out to the prime sponsor of this channel, which is Conservative News and Views. Link in the description. And be sure to check out the awesome CNAV Store. Scroll down near the bottom of that link. Lots of great merchandise there, especially this t-shirt that I have chosen for today, which depicts Plato and quotes him as saying, "No one is more hated than he who speaks the truth." Actually, I warn you now that I made an ironic choice today, and when I quote William Bradford on Plato and other ancients, you'll see why. One more thing. If you like what you're about to hear, you can like this video. You can also click on the bell icon to get a notice every time I come out with a new one. In fact, do you see the new icon, the heart shape with the US dollar sign in it? That's the Super Thanks icon. If you really want to keep these videos coming, click on that and leave me a tip. Any currency will do, so long as it's legal tender. All right, class, come to order. My good friend Roseanne Solonitri wrote 6 years ago of the two Thanksgiving feasts at Plymouth Colony. That story reveals something most people have never heard of, so I've included a link in the description. In December of 1620, a ship named Mayflower landed at the Plymouth site after fighting contrary winds for days. Its passengers, the Pilgrims, actually had two strokes of providence they might not at first have appreciated. First, they landed well north of the lands the Virginia Company of Plymouth had marked out for them, with the result that their contract with that company, by which everything beyond subsistence belonged to it, was off. Second, they landed at a place already cleared, but utterly abandoned. The Native American tribe that once lived there had all died of an infection called Indian fever. The only survivor, a young brave named Squanto, survived because he wasn't there. Taken captive years before, he had traveled throughout England and Europe and learned English. Then he returned to his former village to find all his people dead. So when this ship full of English speakers showed up, Squanto taught them certain skills, without which they all would have died that winter. And as it was, the starving times still claimed half of them, including the first governor, John Carver, who died in April of 1621. His successor, William Bradford, managed to keep the colony going. So in the fall of 1621, the Pilgrims did have a harvest to celebrate. But then they took in a boatload of new arrivals, fed them, and then had to subsist on 5 kernels of corn a day through the winter. Somehow the Pilgrims survived on that iron ration, and in 1622 had another bountiful harvest to celebrate, and as before, the Pilgrims brought corn and baked goods, and their neighbors, the Wampanoags, brought turkey and venison. But the next winter brought the same problems as the previous two, though people don't remember them. The problem, as Bradford sensibly recognized, was one of economic philosophy. Plymouth governed itself according to socialist precept. holding all land in common and enforcing commonality of labor. Even a woman's kitchen was not her own, but was an extension of a community kitchen. Now this we have straight from William Bradford's own history, which he called Of Plymouth Plantation. Yes, plantation, because that's what the New England settlers call the smallest of their colonies. That also explains the full name of the state of Rhode Island. Rhode Island and Providence plantations. But lay that aside. William Bradford called his history Of Plymouth Plantation. The Gutenberg Project managed to turn that into machine-readable text, and I've left a link to it in the description. It is a very valuable resource. 3 theories exist to explain why the Pilgrims tried socialism. One theory says the Pilgrims copied the feudal customs of English and European aristocracy. Another calls it a misapplication of the communal sharing system of the earliest Christians, which St. Luke describes in his Acts of the Apostles, chapters 4 and 5. Bradford himself laid it at the feet of Plato and other ancient philosophers, and I'll get to that later. Well, as a result, the Plymouth colonists lived at a subsistence level and barely managed that. On top of that came an adventure involving one of the original London investors, a man named Thomas Weston. The full particulars of Weston's untoward conduct are too voluminous to repeat here. Bradford describes them. Oh, does he ever. But their effect is undeniable because it brought the Plymouth colony to yet another crisis. Before I tell you how William Bradford solved that crisis, I want to shout out to a sponsor who can really help you through the economic storms to come. That sponsor is oursilverlines.com. Do you feel like you're working harder for your money just to get by? You're not alone. The fluctuating economy, employment issues, and unexpected changes in life have left many families struggling over the past few years. Collecting gold and silver can help shield you against many of these challenges. But if you're like me many years ago, you don't know where or how to start. Our Silver Lines helps by connecting you with thousands of members who are learning the secrets to creating and protecting true wealth by collecting precious metals. Whether you just want to collect rare and unique coins or take advantage of the business opportunities this company provides, either way, they can help you learn to live an exceptional life. Visit oursilverlines.com to learn how you can build a legacy for your own future. Now then, I am going to let William Bradford himself describe what he faced and what he and his counselors did about it. I'm going to quote directly from Of Plymouth Plantation. Some of the language is going to strike you as strange, but remember, this is Elizabethan English. Quote, all this, meaning the Weston affair, while no supply was heard of, neither knew they when they might expect any. So they began to think about how they might raise as much corn as they could and obtain a better crop than they had done, that they might not still thus languish in misery. At length, after much debate of things, the governor, with the advice of the chiefest among them, gave way that they should set, meaning plant, corn, every man for his own particular, and in that regard trust to themselves. In all other things to go on in the general way as before. And so assign to every family a parcel of land, according to the proportion of their number for that end, only for present use, but made no division for inheritance, and ranged all boys and youth under some family. This had very good success, for it made all hands very industrious, so as much more corn was planted than otherwise would have been by any means the governor or any other could use, and saved him a great deal of trouble, and gave far better content. The women now went willingly into the field and took their little ones with them to set corn, which before with alleged weakness and inability, whom to have compelled would have been thought great tyranny and oppression. Unquote William Bradford. But he did not stop with his record of success. Instead, he rebuked the very idea of doing things any other way. Quote, "The experience that was had in this common course and condition, tried sundry years, and that among godly and sober men, may well evince the vanity of that conceit of Plato and other ancients, applauded by some of later times, that the taking away of property and bringing in community into a commonwealth would make them happy and flourishing, as if they were wiser than God. For this community, so far as it was found to breed much confusion and discontent, and retard much employment that would have been to their benefit and comfort. For the young men that were most able and fit for labor and service did repine that they should spend their time and strength to work for other men's wives and children without any recompense. The strong, or men of parts, had no more in division of victuals and clothes." Stop right there. Victuals, did I just say? Yes. The word spelled V-I-C-T-U-A-L is pronounced victual. This is more typical than you might think. The older an English word is, the more likely that a shortening of its pronunciation will set in. Just think of W-O-R-C-E-S-T-E-R-S-H-I-R-E, pronounced Worcestershire, as in the sauce. What starts out as a mistake or a vulgarism becomes correct usage. Time sanctions all mistakes, especially when everyone repeats them. Now, move on. "No more in division of victuals and clothes than he that was weak and not able to do a quarter the other could. This was thought injustice. The aged and graver men to be ranked and equalized in labors and victuals, clothes, etc., with the meaner and younger sort, thought it some indignity and disrespect unto them. And for men's wives to be commanded to do service for other men, as dressing their meat, washing their clothes, etc., not that kind of service. They deemed it a kind of slavery. Neither could many husbands well brook it." Oh boy, did I just use the word brook as a verb? Yes. Brook as a verb meant to tolerate, put up with, or accept. Nor did William Bradford blame any other for not wanting to brook it. Quote, "Upon the point all being to have alike and all to do alike, they thought themselves in the like," meaning same, "condition, and one as good as another. And so, if it did not cut off these relations that God had set among men, yet it did at least much diminish and take of the mutual respects that should be preserved among them, and would have been worse if they had been men of another condition. Let none object, this is men's corruption, and nothing to the course itself. I answer, seeing all men have this corruption in them, God in his wisdom saw another course fitter for them." Close quote. In modern English, Bradford tells us the fault lies not in human beings, but in any system that puts them against one another. Property and the ownership interest that goes with it works. Commons and commonwealth do not. People lose respect for one another if they retain any fellow feeling at all. This Thanksgiving, let us celebrate this valuable lesson and realize how old it is. William Bradford recognized the folly of socialism. Sadly, people tend to forget that folly when abundance grows. People forget that property is the source of abundance. Without it, people live as subsistence, or sometimes less than that. Inevitably, such a system collapses. And here we face a situation very close to that of the Pilgrims after the first and second Thanksgiving dinners. We also have our own Thomas Westons, whom we can call the globalist and the deep state. So now is a time to pray for wisdom and strength to steer the country back to the system that saved the Pilgrims and made America great. Link in the description of the article to the story of the first 2 Thanksgiving feasts, to William Bradford's excellent first-hand history, to my Declaration of Truth Twitter account, and to conservative news and views. I've also left links to the awesome CNAV Store and to ourcivilized.com, as I also mentioned. You know already about how to like a video, turn on notifications, and leave a tip. On the end screen, I'm going to leave a subscribe link to my channel and links to 2 excellent videos about the best Thanksgiving lesson of all, the value of property and respect for it. This is Terry A. Hurlbut delivering another Declaration of Truth and reminding you to let the truth set you free.